Abbott Elementary is back, and not just from its hiatus. I feel like it's back in the stride that we saw in season 4. Spoilers if you aren't up to date. Someone who's had an interest in comics, science fiction, fantasy, and anime, this episode really impacted me because I was definitely this little girl who wanted to join clubs that were almost exclusively for boys and was iced out because boys weren't socialized to interact with women in any meaningful way. And unlike this group in Abbott, I didn't have a Mr. Gregory advocating for me. In fact, I had more of Miss T's that would push me to do something that, included more girls. And I'm not saying that's why she did it. I think, she was really trying to help. But one thing that I think that they were really trying to touch on is that little boys shouldn't be uncomfortable talking to little girls, especially if they have the same interests. And I was so glad to see Gregory push to help these boys unlearn these behaviors. Because let's be clear, these boys were the worst. The podcast bros said that they were bringing down the vibe. You know what kind of person you have to be for podcast bros to not like you? It was really sad for me to see that these types of dynamics still exist. And it's weird because I know it to be true because I see it in my comments online all of the time. I don't know. I thought the youth was our future. And although, they came around, this is a show that's idealistic. I know that this is not the case. And I don't know, it just made me a little sad. Another story I thoroughly enjoyed was Barbara's and Melissa's. This episode really felt like it was pointed directly at me because a millennial teaching a Gen Xer to break a generational curse is honestly a dream of mine. I absolutely love the joke where they're like, we don't want you Gen A-er, insinuating that she was Gen Z because she implied using a tactic that includes discussion. And I think it's very poignant that she said, I'm 40 years old because that's how people be treating us. I'm not 40, but I'm also not in my 20s. And when I talk to Gen Xers about anything, they treat me as if I have no life experience and that I'm some idealistic child, when in reality, they are perpetuating things that have been oppressing them their entire life. And it made me so happy to see them not only recognize that, but apply these things that makes their life better. I also thought Janine's storyline was cute. I first saw her in this outfit. I was like, oh, this looks like season 1 Janine. Why has she got that on? And then they immediately made it a gag. And I love the fact that a student pointed out that Janine has good style. And it's unconventional, sure. It reminds me a lot of Ugly Betty, where, past the second season, they would talk about how terribly she dressed. And Ugly Betty had that shit on. And anyone truly in fashion would very much appreciate what Ugly Betty was wearing. I'm not saying she is this paradigm of fashion, but I definitely think if you were to talk to someone who was really into fashion, they would enjoy, Janine's style choices. Either way, Avid is back. I'm so happy. I'm going to go ahead and give this episode 5 out of 5. Frankie Flames, welcome back.